Cliff Richard and Olivia Newton-John's bond was unlike anything else in show business. For decades, he stood by her side, through triumph, through illness, through the darkest nights when fame turned cruel. To the world they were legends, to each other they were something far rarer. Now Olivia's daughter, Chloe Lattanzi, has finally spoken. In just a few words, she confirmed what those closest to them already knew. Cliff's devotion never wavered. He was there when the cameras stopped rolling, when the crowd went home, when her strength was slipping away. So what did Chloe reveal about the man her mother trusted above all others? Why did Cliff remain the one constant in Olivia's life? And why, even now, does their story feel more powerful than any love affair the tabloids tried to invent? When Olivia Newton-John first crossed paths with Cliff Richard in the late 1970s, both were already icons. Olivia was fresh from the global explosion of Grease, the golden-haired girl who had become an international star almost overnight. Cliff had long been crowned England's Elvis, the polished, enduring figure of British pop. Their meeting was not staged for publicity. It was a collision of two careers that had already defined an era, and it sparked a bond that neither fame nor rumor could break. They came from different worlds, yet there was a symmetry between them. Olivia carried with her the California sunshine. Though she had been born in England, Cliff embodied British show business, polished and reliable. A man who had navigated 2 decades of changing trends and still stood tall. Both knew the weight of fame. Both had been scrutinized in the press, celebrated and criticized in equal measure. It was this shared experience, being adored publicly but living privately, that became the foundation of their friendship. Almost immediately, they were drawn together on stage. Cliff invited Olivia to appear in his television specials, where their voices blended with surprising ease. On screen, their chemistry seemed effortless. Cliff steady and refined, Olivia warm and playful. Audiences adored it. But for the tabloids, the partnership was irresistible fuel. Rumors of romance spread quickly, even as Olivia quietly pursued her own relationships. Headlines speculated about dinners, secret dates, and lingering glances, rarely separating performance from reality. What the public missed was that both stars valued discretion, and that their closeness was not born from scandal but from trust. Cliff had long been guarded about his personal life, wary of how the media distorted even the simplest friendships. Olivia was much the same. Her rise after Grease was so intense that she often sought out places of calm, people she could rely on to treat her as more than a headline. Cliff provided that sanctuary. He understood the contradictions she lived with, adored by millions, yet yearning for genuine connection. For Olivia, Cliff was a rare figure, someone who could sit with her as an equal, who never asked for more than she was willing to give. The bond became visible in the way they supported each other publicly. Cliff spoke admiringly of Olivia's talent, calling her not just a star, but a person of uncommon grace. Olivia in turn described Cliff as one of the few people in the business she could lean on. Together they presented a united front, not lovers but companions who shared a deep understanding of what it meant to be in the spotlight. Fans watched them laugh on stage, rehearse side by side, and exchange warm words. What they didn't see were the conversations in quiet corners, where the glamour fell away and two friends found solace in honesty. Their friendship was not fleeting. While many show business alliances faded after a project ended, Olivia and Cliff continued to appear together, year after year. Holiday specials, charity concerts, joint performances, all became reminders that their connection was not bound by contracts, but by choice. And yet every new appearance reignited speculation. To many it seemed impossible that a man and woman with such visible closeness were just friends. But Cliff and Olivia held firm. They let the rumors swirl, knowing that their truth was stronger than any headline. This was the spark that set the course for decades to come. A friendship grounded in loyalty and shared values. Olivia's daughter Chloe would later describe Cliff as a fixture in their lives. not as a scandal, but as a presence her mother trusted completely. From the start, their bond defied the shallow expectations of celebrity culture. It was never about fleeting passion. It was about finding in the chaos of fame someone who would remain steady. That was the beginning of Cliff Richard and Olivia Newton-John's story, a bond that would deepen, endure, and outlast everything the tabloids thought they knew. As their friendship matured, Cliff Richard and Olivia Newton-John found themselves sharing stages and television screens with increasing frequency. What began as occasional guest appearances soon evolved into a pattern. Whenever Cliff produced a variety show or special, Olivia's name was at the top of his guest list. Their duets revealed a balance that was rare in popular music. Cliff's smooth, measured delivery paired effortlessly with Olivia's light, soaring voice, creating performances that felt less like rehearsals and more like conversations between two people who genuinely understood each other. The public response was immediate. Their first appearances together in the late 1970s drew record audiences, and letters poured into fan clubs praising the way they lit up a room. Producers noticed the reaction and leaned into it, booking them side by side at charity events and holiday specials. Cliff, long seen as the polished gentleman of British pop, seemed revitalized when Olivia stood next to him. Olivia, who had faced immense pressure to live up to her Grease persona, seemed freer in his presence, as if the weight of expectation slipped away the moment they began to sing together. Yet with the applause came something neither of them sought: relentless speculation. Tabloids in Britain and Australia, and later in America, began to run stories that blurred the lines between partnership and romance. Photographs of them laughing at rehearsals were captioned as evidence of intimacy. Reports hinted at secret dinners and unexplained closeness. For readers hungry for intrigue, it was irresistible. But for Cliff and Olivia, it was exhausting. They had stepped into the spotlight to share music and friendship, only to find their trust in each other questioned at every turn. Olivia addressed the rumors with her trademark grace. In interviews, she would smile and deflect, praising Cliff as a dear friend without indulging the idea of romance. Cliff's responses were similar: respectful, warm, but careful. He had long been private about his relationships, refusing to let the press define his personal life. What they both understood was that denying the rumors outright often gave them more oxygen, so they kept their words measured, never confirming nor escalating the speculation. It was a delicate dance, protecting their bond without allowing outsiders to dictate its meaning. Behind the cameras, however, their devotion to one another only deepened. They were allies in an industry that demanded constant performance, both on stage and off. Cliff, who had endured decades of scrutiny about his bachelor lifestyle, found in Olivia someone who never judged or probed. Olivia, who was navigating both skyrocketing fame and the pressures of her private life, found in Cliff a source of stability. Together they created a kind of shield, one built not of secrecy but of mutual respect. This resilience was tested during their joint tours and high-profile appearances. At concerts, their duets often drew louder cheers than solo numbers, and the whispers of more than friends only grew louder. Still, they pressed forward, allowing the music to speak louder than the gossip. When Cliff introduced Olivia at one of his London shows in the early 80s, he called her not just a superstar but someone I consider family. Olivia, visibly touched, responded with warmth that made the audience roar. The tabloids reported it as a confession. For Cliff and Olivia, it was simply the truth of their friendship, wrapped in words the world might not fully understand. What set their bond apart was its endurance. Professional pairings in music often burn brightly for a season before fading, but Cliff and Olivia remained connected long after the curtain closed. Every year brought new projects, new appearances, and fresh speculation. To outsiders, it was a mystery that begged to be solved. To them, it was simply life, two friends choosing, again and again, to stand by each other no matter what the world said. Theirs was not a performance crafted for cameras. It was a partnership rooted in devotion, and it would withstand not only the chatter of the 80s, but the far harsher tests that lay ahead. Away from the cameras and bright stage lights, the friendship between Olivia Newton-John and Cliff Richard took on its truest form. Their public appearances showed charm and chemistry, but it was in the quieter spaces of life that their connection proved unshakable. For both, the world of entertainment could be relentless, filled with endless demands, shifting loyalties, and the constant hum of gossip. Having someone who understood that reality without judgment was a rare gift. In Cliff and Olivia, that gift found a home. Cliff had lived for decades under scrutiny about his personal life. As one of Britain's most enduring stars, his bachelorhood was questioned relentlessly, and every friendship with a woman was turned into tabloid fodder. Olivia knew this kind of intrusion well. She had soared to international fame after Greece, only to find herself under a microscope, with her relationships dissected and her private choices debated as though they belonged to the public. This mutual understanding created a level of trust between them that neither gave easily to others. They didn't need to explain the exhaustion of fame to one another. They had lived it. That trust became visible in the ways they quietly supported each other during personal struggles. Olivia endured a series of challenges in her romantic life, including breakups and the strain of balancing her career with her desire for family. Cliff was there during those moments, not with grand gestures but with steady loyalty. He provided perspective, reassurance, and above all, discretion. In a world where confidences were often betrayed for a headline, Olivia could speak freely with him, knowing her words would never find their way into the papers. For Cliff, Olivia offered the same. He had always been a deeply private man, protective of his faith and personal values. Olivia respected those boundaries without question. She didn't pry or demand explanations. She simply accepted him as he was. That acceptance, rare in an industry where relationships often came with conditions, gave Cliff the space to be his truest self. Friends would later remark that Cliff seemed most at ease in Olivia's company, able to set aside the polished public persona and relax into something genuine. They also shared a commitment to using their fame for more than applause. Both were passionate about charity, often lending their voices to causes that mattered to them. Cliff admired Olivia's generosity, particularly as she became involved in cancer research and advocacy after her own diagnosis in the early 1990s. Olivia in turn recognized Cliff's long-standing dedication to charitable work and the example he set. These shared values deepened their connection further, reinforcing that their bond was not built only on shared experiences of fame, but on shared principles that guided their lives. What stood out most in their private friendship was the absence of competition. In an industry where careers were measured against one another, Cliff and Olivia seemed untouched by rivalry. When Olivia achieved a new milestone, Cliff celebrated her success without envy. When Cliff endured professional challenges, Olivia offered encouragement without hesitation. Their friendship existed outside the usual currency of show business, where alliances often rose and fell with chart positions and box office numbers. Instead, it existed in a space of loyalty, rooted in an understanding that transcended career. This loyalty would prove crucial as the years went on. Whenever speculation about their relationship resurfaced, both maintained their calm. They knew the truth, and that truth didn't need defending. What mattered was the friendship itself, solid, enduring, and stronger than rumor. To those closest to them, it was clear that Cliff and Olivia had found in each other something rare, not romance, not scandal, but a companionship that gave both of them strength. It was a bond that would endure every headline, every whisper, and every test still to come. By the mid-1980s, Cliff Richard and Olivia Newton-John had built a friendship that was both admired and questioned. Their appearances together were always warmly received, their duets beloved, their public chemistry undeniable. Yet with every new performance came a familiar cycle. Photographs splashed across the tabloids, headlines speculating about romance, and insinuations that their bond was something hidden, rather than celebrated. For Cliff and Olivia, this was the burden of fame at its most intrusive, the inability to share genuine closeness without it being reshaped into a story that sold papers. Olivia bore the weight of this attention with her usual grace. She was soft-spoken, careful, never one to lash out at the press even when the rumors became ridiculous. Asked in interviews about Cliff, she would smile and say only what was true, that he was a dear friend, someone she trusted, someone who had been there for her. But she never indulged the hunger for scandal. Her restraint frustrated journalists searching for a sensational quote, yet it preserved the dignity of their bond. Olivia knew that to feed the rumors was to diminish the truth, and she refused to do so. Cliff's approach was equally measured. Decades in the public eye had taught him the futility of denying gossip outright. He knew that the more emphatically he rejected an accusation, the more it seemed to confirm it. So he chose his words carefully, affirming his admiration for Olivia without giving in to speculation. He often described her as family, a phrase that captured his feelings but left tabloids unsatisfied. In this way, Cliff navigated the difficult terrain of public scrutiny, offering honesty without surrendering to curiosity. His silence where it mattered most was itself a form of protection. Behind the calm facades, however, the attention took its toll. Olivia was deeply private by nature, a woman who valued her home life, her family, her close circle of friends. To have her bond with Cliff turned into a headline, year after year, was draining. She longed for a world where friendship could be accepted at face value, where loyalty didn't need to be defended. Cliff, too, felt the wear. Every time a rumor surfaced, it cast a shadow not only on his relationship with Olivia, but also on his broader reputation as a man who valued integrity. The scrutiny was a reminder that no matter how long he had been in the industry, he was still at the mercy of speculation. What kept them steady was their refusal to let the noise touch the core of their friendship. They laughed about some of the more outrageous stories, choosing not to let bitterness creep in. Their private bond became even more important as the pressure mounted. Friends noted that Olivia seemed more relaxed when Cliff was nearby, and that Cliff himself appeared more grounded in her presence. It was as though the world outside didn't exist when they shared a quiet conversation or stepped onto a stage together. That space of calm became their refuge. Their ability to withstand scrutiny only deepened the respect of those closest to them. Industry colleagues who had seen countless friendships fracture under the weight of gossip admired their resilience. Fans who followed them for decades came to see the speculation less as scandal and more as proof of the undeniable closeness between them. While the tabloids thrived on rumor, the audience sensed something purer, something that endured precisely because it resisted definition. Cliff and Olivia had transformed public curiosity into a testament to their devotion, one that only grew stronger with time. For Cliff and Olivia, surviving the strain of public scrutiny was not about fighting back or setting the record straight. It was about living their truth quietly, side by side, without apology. Their bond needed no validation, no headline to define it. And as the years stretched on, it became clear that theirs was not a story of scandal, but of steadfast loyalty, the kind that could outlast even the harshest spotlight. As time carried them into the 1990s and beyond, the friendship between Olivia Newton-John and Cliff Richard faced its greatest test, not from the tabloids, but from the trials of life itself. In 1992, Olivia was diagnosed with breast cancer, a revelation that shocked her fans and shook those closest to her. She was only 44. The news reminded the world that behind the glamour was a woman facing a terrifying fight for survival. Through it all, Cliff stood quietly by her side, not as a headline companion but as a loyal friend who refused to waver. Olivia's battle with cancer was grueling. Surgeries, chemotherapy, and the emotional toll of living under the shadow of illness could have broken her spirit. Yet she remained remarkably resilient, projecting courage and optimism even in her darkest hours. Cliff was one of the steady presences who gave her strength. He supported her work as she became a powerful advocate for cancer research and awareness, lending his own voice to charity initiatives she championed. When Olivia opened the Olivia Newton-John Cancer Wellness and Research Center in Melbourne, Cliff's pride in her achievement was obvious. He praised not only her determination to survive but her choice to transform her pain into hope for others. Their bond, once defined by duets and television specials, now revealed itself in quieter ways. Cliff often visited Olivia during her recovery periods, ensuring she never felt isolated. In moments when her energy was low, his presence provided comfort without demand. Their friendship was no longer just about entertaining the public. It was about enduring together through life's most difficult realities. For Olivia, Cliff became proof that true loyalty did not fade when the spotlight dimmed. As the years passed, their closeness remained a constant. While both pursued independent careers, their lives intersected often, whether on stage, at charity events, or in private gatherings. Fans noticed that even as decades rolled by, the warmth between them never cooled. When Olivia appeared with Cliff at his concerts in the 2000s, the audience erupted with nostalgia and admiration, sensing that their partnership was no longer about performance, but about legacy. It was a reminder of a friendship that had carried them both through extraordinary highs and crushing lows. Olivia's later health struggles, as the cancer returned multiple times, once again placed their bond in sharp focus. By then, Cliff had seen many of his contemporaries fade from the public stage, but his devotion to Olivia did not falter. He spoke openly of his admiration for her courage, calling her an inspiration to everyone who knew her. These tributes were not rehearsed or staged. They were the heartfelt words of a man who had walked beside her for more than 40 years and who had witnessed her resilience up close. For Olivia, having Cliff's support through her illness was not only a comfort, but also a reminder of the life she had lived beyond fame. In interviews, she often described herself as blessed with enduring friendships, and though she rarely singled out names, those who knew her understood that Cliff was among the most treasured. Their connection outlasted fleeting romances, professional rivalries, and the pressures of celebrity. It was a bond that gave both of them a sense of stability in a world that rarely offered it. By the time Olivia entered the final years of her life, their friendship had become something larger than themselves. It symbolized devotion that endured through decades of change, illness, and loss. For Cliff, watching her health decline was deeply painful, but he continued to honor her publicly with dignity and respect. For Olivia, his presence remained a reminder that some connections could not be shaken, no matter how relentless the trials of life became. When Olivia Newton-John passed in August 2022, the world mourned not only the loss of a beloved singer and actress, but also the fading of a light that had inspired generations. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe, yet none were as poignant as those from Cliff Richard. He spoke of his heartbreak, his admiration, and his gratitude for having shared a life of friendship with her. For Cliff, Olivia was not simply a colleague or a duet partner. She was family, the constant presence who had walked beside him for more than 40 years. His grief was not theatrical. It was quiet, steady, and deeply personal, echoing the devotion he had shown her all along. In the days that followed, fans revisited their countless performances together, the duets that seemed to flow like conversation, the playful smiles that lit up television specials, the moments of shared laughter that broke through the polish of stardom. For many, those memories took on a new meaning. They were not just displays of chemistry for the cameras. They were glimpses of a friendship that endured far beyond applause. The speculation that had shadowed them for decades fell away, replaced by a recognition that their bond had been something far more profound. It was loyalty without condition, devotion without demand. Cliff's tributes reflected that truth. He described Olivia not in terms of scandal or mystery, but in terms of love, the love of friendship, of trust, of shared faith. He recalled her courage in facing illness, her generosity in turning her struggles into a mission of hope, her grace in navigating a world that often sought to diminish her. His words painted a portrait not of a star, but of a woman he had cherished and admired for most of his life. In honoring her, Cliff revealed more about himself, that devotion was his measure of love, and that Olivia had been its truest recipient. It was Chloe Lattanzi, Olivia's daughter, who ultimately confirmed what those closest to them had always known. In remembering her mother, Chloe spoke of Cliff not as a rumored lover or distant colleague, but as a steadfast friend who never left Olivia's side. Her words were brief, yet they carried the weight of decades. She acknowledged that Cliff's presence was real, enduring, and essential to her mother's life. In doing so, she swept away years of speculation and replaced them with a simple truth. Theirs was not a story of secrecy, but of devotion that never faltered. For Chloe, protecting her mother's legacy meant affirming the relationships that had defined her. Cliff was one of those rare constants. In revealing that truth, she gave fans permission to see their bond for what it was, a love that transcended labels, a partnership that outlasted the noise of gossip. It was not about what might have been, it was about what truly was. Today, when fans speak of Olivia and Cliff, the conversation has shifted. No longer centered on rumors, it focuses on admiration. Their friendship has become a symbol of what is possible when two people choose loyalty over scandal, trust over betrayal, and devotion over the fleeting allure of romance. In an industry known for breakups and fallouts, theirs was a story of endurance. It reminds us that some bonds are stronger than fame, stronger than gossip, stronger even than death. Chloe's words brought that story to its final chapter. She revealed that her mother cherished Cliff for exactly what he was, a friend who remained through every triumph and every trial, who never abandoned her when life grew hardest. That is the truth that endures now. Olivia Newton-John is gone, but the devotion she shared with Cliff Richard lives on, in their music, in their memories, and in the legacy of loyalty that her daughter has finally confirmed. For more emotional stories, check out this video.